What's going on, Washington Commanders Nation? It's your boy Rio, checking in with the latest and greatest on the Rambling with Rio YouTube channel, where we ramble about the Washington Commanders. We are now reached the preseason finale. We are that much closer to the regular season, and we're playing our brothers from up north, up the Beltway. So I had to bring in my chief Raven correspondent, my guy Jake Moszkowski. What is going on, my dude? What's going on, man? Glad to bring in
How's it going, my guy?
Chief Raven correspondent, my guy. Jake. Echo. Do you have echo cancellation on your end?
Yeah, I have echo cancellation.
Glad to bring in
How's it going, my guy?
Chief Raven correspondent.
It is like echoing crazy right now. Hold up.
Yeah, I have echo cancellation.
Hold on, give me 1 second.
How's it going, my guy?
Chief Raven correspondent.
It is like echoing. Why is this playing? Hold up.
Yeah, I have echo cancellation.
Technical difficulties. Give me 1 second. Do you have it playing? I don't know where. Like, it sounds like everything I'm saying is running back right now. All right, it's not doing it. Do you still hear it while you're muted? It's like you hear me, but do you hear it echoing? All right, now unmute yourself.
Better?
I believe so.
Okay. Yeah, didn't have it playing.
All right, I don't know what the hell that was about. I had a stream about a month ago where we had echo problems for like 40 minutes. That shit was absolutely terrible. But how's it going down in Ravenland right now, man?
It's going pretty well. I think big training camp. Obviously, in the middle of a preseason win streak now, 22 strong. Yeah.
Why do y'all win in the pre? Why do y'all try to win these preseason games?
I mean, at this point, I feel like, yes. I feel like they've got to be putting in a little bit of extra effort to continue, because it's one thing to win 4 straight preseason games, 5 straight preseason games, whatever. But, I mean, 22 straight, it feels like the coaching staff's putting a little bit of extra emphasis on it. For me, I'm like, is it nice to win in the preseason? Yes. Would I trade in a 22-game preseason win streak for 6 regular season game win streak? 100%.
100%. But, like, it feels like would y'all game plan or scheme more than other teams? Like, what, y'all haven't lost a preseason game in like 6 years. Like, that shit is befuddling as hell to me. Like, what can we expect to see Saturday? Are y'all going to be playing any starters, or does it even matter because your depth players are still better than everybody else's?
I don't know. I mean, I doubt that we play any major starters. Like, you're not going to see Lamar. You're not going to see Andrews. I doubt you see Bateman or any of the other main wide receivers. I mean, you might see Demarcus Robinson, who we just signed, and obviously they want to get involved in the game plan a little bit more, see what we got with that signing. On the defensive side, I know fans are going to be up in arms if we start any major defensive starters after Travis Jones, our rookie defensive tackle, hyperextended his knee in the preseason game. He was playing in the third quarter, and I think some fans were a little uppity about that decision-making process. But for me, I mean, it's preseason. Like, you're going to play your rookies if they're healthy. You're going to play them because you want to see what you got for them before the regular season starts. But I'm pretty confident, obviously, in Tyler Huntley's preseason ability. He's looked pretty good in his preseason action. Anthony Brown, we've got good guys.
Oh yeah, man! Y'all had an amazing draft class. Y'all had like 1,000 picks so far. And before we get to your draft class, what is the latest with Lamar Jackson in his contract? Is it that he's betting on himself? Is he still representing himself like him and his mother? Does he have an agent? What is going on? Why is he not getting a bag, or why does he seem to be turning down a guaranteed bag right now?
So, I mean, I can only hypothesize. I know for a fact he doesn't have an agent. He's represented by himself, and that is going to make the negotiation process a little bit more tricky than a traditional negotiation for his contract. At this point, my guess is a little bit betting on himself and a little bit perhaps wanting to model his contract after what Deshaun Watson got, which I think is more of an anomaly and not necessarily what a regular negotiation. Deshaun Watson obviously got a 5-year deal, fully guaranteed. I think that in part has to do with Cleveland desperately wanting a franchise quarterback for so long, needing something to reinvigorate their fan base after the Baker Mayfield, who they clearly have deemed a failure. They've since traded away. But yeah, if I'm Lamar, I'm asking for at bare minimum a little bit more than what Kyler Murray just got. But yeah, I don't know. I think the way things are currently trending, I would guess that we're leaning more and more into franchise tag territory in the future, which is not ideal. I would obviously like to lock up Lamar Jackson on a long-term deal. And like I said, using Kyler Murray's deal as a benchmark, you figure $1 million more, a couple 100,000 more, and a little bit more in guarantees. In my world, that should probably get that done.
Hell yeah, but I kind of feel him for putting his balls on the table and saying, I want it fully guaranteed, because if the massage man in Cleveland, with all these pending things and 11 games suspension and all that, he can get the 230 fully guaranteed. I ain't got no trouble. I got more MVPs than him. I got more playoff appearances than him. I'd say, Baltimore, talk to me nice, fully guarantee my contract. You know what type of player I am. You know what I bring to the table. Y'all could barely win one game without me last year. I know my worth. You're definitely not going to let me test the market. Fully guaranteed a goddamn deal. Shit, I've seen Kirk Cousins get fully guaranteed deal. And Kirk has changed the game on quarterback contracts. So I feel Lamar for trying to get his money. There's no chance we're going to see Lamar on Saturday, right?
No shot. Unless you see him on the sideline dancing with Mark Andrews. No shot.
Oh, yeah. Swagged out with the hair out, with the shades on, man. I love Lamar, man. Like, I really don't care for the Ravens, but I love the way y'all do business, and I love your quarterback. Love that guy. Please treat him well, and eventually people are going to stop disrespecting him, because Lamar is easily one of the top 10, 12 players in the NFL, and people talk about, like, I hear dumbass Eagle fans say shit like Jalen Hurts can do what Lamar Jackson does, and I almost want to vomit when I hear shit like that.
Yeah, no, I think Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than people probably give him credit for, but the idea that Jalen can do what Lamar does is a little preposterous. I mean, in Lamar's first full season as the starter, I mean, he won the MVP throwing the football to Willie Snead. I mean, young Marquise before he was Hollywood Brown, young Mark Andrews. I mean, Seth Roberts was on that wide receiver core, and Lamar won MVP. And people forget and often discount 1,200 rushing yards as a quarterback.
Absurd.
Jalen Hurts is a good running quarterback, and he is a good dual threat quarterback, and he is all those things. But to say that he can do what Lamar can do feels like a little bit of a stretch of the imagination, if you will.
Hell yeah, man. Lamar is different. Lamar is just on another planet. Is what like Lamar is taking what we saw Vic do to other heights, because this dude is out of this world. What's going on to everybody in the chat? Y'all have any questions for me or my boy Jake? Jake is the sharpest Ravens fan I know. He'll definitely have an answer for it. But let's get into you guys' draft class. Your first round pick, I believe y'all had two of them. You had a guy that this fan base coveted. I heard Sean Taylor type comparisons, generational talent, generational talent, that phrase we all hate. And y'all got center Tyler Lindenbaum later in the first round. How have they fared so far in camp and preseason?
I mean, I think Kyle Hamilton's gotten a lot of grief. I think that people see first round pick, he's got the pedigree, he's got everything, and they want him to be an immediate star. And I think that's an unrealistic expectation. I think that he's had his ups and downs. He's been good. He looked good. He recovered a fumble in his first preseason game. He has the awareness. He's got the range. He had a pass deflection last game that showed how, he is 6'4", 220 pounds. He is an enormous presence ranging around in your secondary. And for the people out there who say, oh, well, he's got tackling liability or he's been an issue in coverage, Last preseason, people were saying that Jamar Chase had drop issues, and we all saw how that turned out.
And he had the greatest receiving season we've ever seen in our entire existence. I was one of those people, man. He couldn't catch a goddamn cold. He couldn't catch COVID when everyone had it last year. That man was dropping everything. Regular season came, the bright lights came on, and that's what a superstar baller type player does. Kyle Hamilton looks so out of place because he's so big, bro.
Yeah, and I will say the advantage for Kyle Hamilton is there's no pressure. I mean, there's a pressure as a first round pick to come in and produce right away. But the Ravens also have two very good safeties already there. They brought over Marcus Williams from the Saints. He's a true center fielder. Yeah. He can fill that role that they've lacked probably since Earl Thomas went off the deep end. And then they still have Chuck Clark, who's such an underrated presence in the Ravens secondary. Consistent. He's a guy who's been there for a while now. And so Hamilton can come in specific packages early on. My guess is his snap count will mirror, for those who remember, Marlon Humphrey's rookie year, where it's on the lower end the first few weeks of the season and then up that snap count as the season goes on. As far as the other first-round pick, to this day, I'm still amazed they got a first-round pick in value return for Hollywood Brown.
That was exactly where we were about to go. That's a perfect segue. I don't know what the hell it is in the Baltimore waters. I don't know what type of magic Ozzie Newsome sprinkled on the Eric DeCosta. And how the fuck did you guys get a first-round pick for Hollywood Brown, who I never really viewed as a number one receiver? Like, it's like the Cardinals were like, we should have never got Hopkins for what we got him for, so fuck it. We want one of Kyler's friends. We'll do what we got to do to bring him in.
I mean, the fact that they got Hopkins for a second rounder and David Johnson, and they got Hollywood for a first rounder, it kind of just blows my mind a little bit. I think it twofold. I think that they knew that Hopkins was about to get suspended, and so they needed a player there. And in contract negotiations with Kyler Murray, it probably didn't hurt to go out and get one of his really good friends from when they were in Oklahoma together, which is Hollywood Brown. Still, I feel like given what, let's say, the Eagles got for A.J. Brown or gave up for A.J. Brown, I feel like that it's tough. I mean, I'm not complaining. I think Tyler's going to be our center of the future, even though he's been injured and hasn't played in the preseason so far. Looked good in training camp. I think will fit pretty nicely on the Ravens offensive line.
Hell yeah. We were talking earlier off camera about the rookies who've been the most impressive out of your draft class so far. And it's probably two names that people wouldn't expect. The tight end is someone I definitely had my eyes on. My guy, Isaiah Likely out of Coastal Carolina, and the D lineman, Travis Jones. Tell me about the impact they've had in camp and in these preseason games so far.
Yeah. So for Isaiah Likely, I think there were some people who might have had him as high as the tight end one in this class. I, to this day, don't know how he slipped all the way to us.
I was mocking him in the second round to us every day.
I think people were a little bit concerned that he's more of like I'm use an example, the guy in Miami, Mike Gesicki, like a tight end who's not a traditional inline blocker, not great in that, more of like a flexed out wide receiver. But as we saw last year with Kyle Pitts, guys like that can thrive in the NFL in the right situation. So you see a guy like Isaiah Likely probably going to be target number 3 or target number 4, if I had to guess, to be completely honest, in the Ravens offense this year behind guys like Bateman and Andrews. People call him Baby Mark Andrews already. He's obviously – he has in the last preseason game, he had, I think, 8 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown on 15 snaps. Shows you the capability, and no one's going to be able to blanket him. They're not going to be able to double a guy like that when you have Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman out there on the field as well. So I think he could provide that safety blanket that we haven't seen for the Ravens in multiple tight end sets really since Hayden Hurst was in Baltimore. And then as far as Travis Jones goes, another guy, to me, even more shocking that was available in the 3rd round. I saw mocks that had him going to the Ravens in the 1st round. I mean, you're talking about a monstrous defensive tackle, a guy who can provide true interior pressure. And I think that he fell a little, I hate to say it, probably because of where he played. He played at UConn. Yep. And I think people looked at that 100%. And maybe viewed that differently. But you look at a guy like that, he absolutely blew up Trace McSorley in the Cardinals last week. He's a huge guy. He's pretty fast for a guy at his size.
Chase.
And obviously he's out with a hyperextended knee now, probably through the first 3-4 weeks of the season. But I mean, you slap a guy like that into the Ravens' middle of their front four, and you got Justin Madubuike is there, Calais Campbell's back. I mean, those are guys, big guys.
Y'all are so loaded, bro. Yeah. Well, y'all are so fucking I'm so envious, bro. Y'all are loaded every year, your draft class. How the hell y'all end up with so many 4th-round picks? What type of maneuvering did y'all do to get all these picks, man?
I mean, obviously you trade some players move in and out. You accumulate, you trade back, you do whatever to accumulate these picks like this. I mean, in years past, I think we acquired a 5th-round pick for a backup kicker that we traded to Minnesota, who I believe didn't even make the roster. So it's just some Eric DaCosta magic there. But I will say, shout out to one player who I don't think is receiving enough hype as a Ravens rookie. We drafted a 6th-rounder. His name's Demarion Williams. His nickname is Pepe. He's looked pretty good as a slot corner, little undersized, scrappy guy, very reminiscent of a guy like Tavon Young, who's no longer in Baltimore, had more injury concerns.
Sounds like Jimmy Moreland. Like a
little guy, scrappy, had an interception last week. I think he could surprise people. I think he's going to play into the cornerback rotation pretty quickly.
So I have this thing called hard knock syndrome that our fans suffer with. I want to know if you can relate to this. There's always a guy who you just know is never going to really produce, but if he gets cut, your fans absolutely lose their mind and act like you just cut a Hall of Famer. Who are the candidates for that for you guys?
I mean, there's so many wide receivers of years past because, I mean, we were talking about it earlier. Not the greatest track record with drafting wideouts in Baltimore.
Not quite Pittsburgh.
Not even close. I hate to say it, but they are damn good at drafting wide receivers in Pittsburgh. But no, I mean, I think after his first preseason performance, if we don't keep Shamar Bridges, I think fans could lose their minds over that. I think that there's a pretty good chance any of these young wide receivers, Mekhi Polk out of Mississippi State, Slade Bolden just went on IR. I mean, we just cut Jalen Moore, and now he signed right away with the New York Giants, I believe. I'm sure there are fans who are up in arms about that. This year in particular, I don't know if there's like a training camp standout that if he doesn't receive the snaps. I would say historically, we also know that we have guys who are awesome in training camp and they look great, like a Brashad Perryman, 1st-round pick, in training camp and has done absolutely nothing.
I know you were sick to your stomach when he actually had a good season-ish when he was with Tampa.
My God. I mean, look, maybe we weren't utilizing him correctly. He obviously had health issues, so there were issues there. But Miles Boykin's a great example. If he has a good season in Pittsburgh, I will vomit everywhere. If he has a good season after being pretty much nothing more than a blocking wide receiver in Baltimore.
What up, Charles? What up, Scott? Sugar Daddy, Michael. Michael has a question for you. I'm going to ask in just a second, but if you want a Hall of Fame receiver, based on our fan base's reception of this guy, y'all should sign Kelvin Harmon because we just released Kelvin Harmon yesterday, and I'm pretty sure you know Kelvin Harmon very well coming out of college. He showed some flashes in a year where we went 3-13, and it was an absolute shit show here. And our second receiver was Dontrell Inman. So at the time, like someone pulled up one of my old tweets earlier and was like, "Yo, you thought he was a wide receiver too in 2022. Yeah, of course I did. We didn't have Prime Terry, Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, De'Ami Brown, Cam Sims, Dak Mill, Alex. We have a whole wide receiving core of guys now. So pulling up a tweet that I said in 2020 where we had absolute dreck at the position does not disprove the fact that Harmon is not good. I'm sorry. He's not good.
I would say we all have bad takes on Twitter. Someone found a take of mine when the Ravens drafted Arthur Brown, who I thought was going to be the next great linebacker for Baltimore, and he panned out to be nothing. So I think every person who says, "Oh, you said this, that," every person who has a Twitter has one historically bad sports take. They're just not willing to admit it.
And people that get paid to do this shit have worse takes, and they still have a job at the end of the day. But ultimately, just attaching yourself to guys because they have great stories, great personalities, and shit like that, it's just going to hurt your heart at the end of the day. Like, we lose our minds. We're going to rue the day we lose Jimmy Moreland. He's about to be on his 4th team now because he got released by 2 teams in a row. Fabian Moreau he just got released today. Kelvin Harmon's probably not going to see a 53-man roster in his life. I told them about Antonio Gandy Golden. This motherfucker's retiring to go back to school and to continue to master the art of the Rubik's Cube. I be trying to tell him, man, they be like our fans. We do this thing where we shit on the players that actually matter and produce for us, but the players that will never mean anything on the field, we love them and we open our arms for them and we will give them 1,000 chances here. But speaking of guys that have a role to play and they do their role, but fans probably think a lot more than them, than who they are. Who do you think is bigger on that scale, Tyler Huntley or Taylor Heineke?
Oh boy. I mean, I think your fan base might be bigger on Taylor, and I think that there's not a knock on Tyler Huntley and Lamar Jackson situation. I think that's more a reflection of how your fan base, half your fan base, might feel about Carson Wentz. As a Ravens fan, I think that Tyler Huntley is a perfectly serviceable backup. If you thrust him into the Ravens lineup, given how the lineup looks for an entire 17-game season, it would not shock me if we went 4-13. I do not think that he is a full 17-game starting caliber quarterback. And I think you'd feel the same way about Taylor Heineke now. Carson Wentz is a great quarterback. People forget about Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz almost won MVP the year that the Eagles won the Super Bowl. He's a good quarterback.
Talk to him.
You're giving him talent, and this is how he did in Indy. He was pretty good in Indy. And last year, I mean, who were their wide receivers? They had Michael Pittman, that's my USC boy.
That's it.
Be a star. T.Y. Hilton is 32.
Zach Pascal.
I don't think T.Y. Hilton is on an active roster right
Washed.
And besides that, I mean, who else?
Zach Pascal.
From
ODU.
And Campbell, if he's healthy, maybe. I mean, like, Carson Wentz is better than people give him credit for, and I think that he could be really good this year. I think he might be the best quarterback you've had, as we discussed, since prime rookie year RG3.
I believe so, and I'm a Kirk guy, but Carson's highs are as good as any quarterback we've had here. But it's an experience. It's a roller. It comes with moments where he throws fucking left-handed interceptions and he tosses the ball straight to the other team. I will take that shit over a noodle arm game manager. Like, I like Taylor Heineke. I like what he did for us. That playoff game was magical. He got a whole T-shirt called the Legend of Heineke line started after that game. It was phenomenal. But I view them like stepdads. You know what I'm saying? Stepdads, they come in and put in just enough effort to help out with the kids, but you don't want the stepdad with the kid all the time. Like, you don't want him taking the full role. Like, you need it in moderation, man. It's like a junk food, you know what I'm saying? It's really nice to have in the middle of the night, but if you eat that shit all the time, you're gonna look disgusting. And once the league got film on a guy like Taylor Heineke, once they see him over the duration of a season, he's exposed. So for any fan out there that does not think Wentz is a monumental upgrade over Taylor Heineke, bless your heart. And apparently y'all got fans as well that think Huntley is Lamar Jackson 2.0.
Oh my God, the amount of tweets that I've seen in the past few days from people saying, "Oh, you trade Lamar Jackson, sign Huntley to 5 years, $60 million deal. You'll get just as much. You'll get 80% of the production." No, we won't. We saw last year what happened with Huntley, and he is a fine quarterback, but you don't want a fine quarterback. You want a game changer at the position. There's a reason we started, 8-3 before Lamar got hurt, and then we won one game the remainder of the year with Tyler Huntley, and it was against the Bears. And we know how the Bears were last year. They didn't support Justin Fields. They had Darnell Mooney and injured Allen Robinson, Cole Kmet sort of, and really nobody else. So, I mean, it's tough. I don't want to knock on Huntley. I think that, like I said, I think he's a perfectly serviceable backup who will probably be in the NFL a long time. Do I think that he can come in and carry the Ravens to the playoffs the way that we've seen Lamar Jackson try to do and succeed in doing? No.
Facts. Exactly, man. It is okay to accept that a guy's role should be carrying a Surface Pro and not a franchise. It is perfectly fine. I'm not a Heineke hater. I'm telling the truth, and some of y'all don't want to hear the truth. A backup is a backup, and that's perfectly fine, and it's cool because at some point, the 5th-round rookie that we drafted, Sam Howell, will be the backup behind Wentz because that type of arm talent is not going to stay behind a noodle that too long. People
also forget Sam Howell would have been, in my opinion, a first-round pick if he had his 2 receiving targets from the year before he got to a full year before he got drafted And one of those guys who he dominated with at UNC happens to already be on your roster. You already have De'Ami Brown. When he had, and people forget, the guys that he lost and still looked pretty good at UNC last year, he lost De'Ami Brown. He lost Daz Newsome. He lost both Javonte Williams and Michael Carter. He had a ton of talent, and all of a sudden they were gone, and he still looked pretty good with Josh Downs, who I think is probably a second or third round wide receiver next year. So I think that Howell could be a very good quarterback. I think I had him as my QB 2 or 3 of this past class. It wouldn't shock me to see him take over the backup job for Heineke in the near future.
Oh, yeah. As soon as he consumes the offense. See, the thing is, we don't need to – for the first time that I could possibly think, we don't have to rush a young quarterback on the field. Like, he can just sit back and consume the offense. Taylor's going to assume the role as backup until he doesn't need to anymore, you know? He can sit back, put him in the slow cooker, learn the offense, learn how to be a professional football player. He's coming in not raw, so he has that going for him. But before we talk about your division, your predictions on the season for your team, we're the Washington Commanders now. You've seen the new uniform. You've seen all the new – how does – as a Ravens fan, like, how does all this new shit – like, how are you receiving it?
I mean, so for me, it took me a little while to get used to the name, but I think that happens with everything. I'm happy that the color scheme stayed the same. But for me, I mean, we don't different division, different conference. It's not like we're going to run into each other all that often. I'll be pretty curious to see how this season plays out for Washington. I think that a healthy Terry McLaurin, hopefully a healthy Logan Thomas for you guys. I think for me, the most interesting storylines though for this season for you guys, and maybe you can enlighten me a little bit more, is what has happened to Antonio Gibson? Is Brian Robinson going to be the guy for you guys? And then also, what do we make of Chase Young? We talked about it a little bit before. Obviously, the injury is out of his control. I do think that when he's fully healthy, he can be one of the better defensive players.
Let me cut you off right quick. Yeah. Nobody in the fucking world said Kirk Cousins had a cannon. You're tweaking right now. Kirk Cousins is an efficient quarterback and a productive quarterback. Nobody ever said Kirk Cousins had a cannon, and I would take him 365 days a year over a guy who was on the couch doing accounting classes at ODU last year, and that will close the Taylor Heineke conversation. I'm sorry. Continue your point. Brian Robinson looks like he might be him in the running back room, man.
Alabama just produces good running backs. I think at the end of the day, that's clear. I mean, someone shared a graphic a couple years ago when they had Kamara, they had Yeldon, they had Derrick Henry, all Kenyon Drake, all in the same running back room, which is insane to think about in college, no less.
They be cheating, man.
But I mean, Brian Robinson, Najee Harris. I mean, going back, Damian Harris. I mean, you keep going back and you keep finding new talent in Alabama. And I think this year they got a transfer from Georgia Tech, who I think was underrated last year because he played for Georgia Tech. I think Gibbs is going to be that guy. Watch out. He could very easily end up running back, I think, for me, 2 or 3 of this class too.
Yeah, man. Robinson looks the part. See, the difference is from the outside looking in, it's going to look like it's just the fumbles because, you know, Gibson led the league in running back fumbles last year. He fumbled a few times in practice, did fumbles on his second carry at a preseason. But the bigger point is that he's not a decisive running back, and his vision's off. It's not Trent Richardson bad, but it's really bad. Like, he leaves a lot to be desired, a lot of daylight on the field. He doesn't hit the hole fast enough. And you see this kid from Bama come in. He gets the ball and goes north immediately. Yeah. And he's shiftier than you'd think to be this big, yoked-up running back. And he can catch. So it's like a perfect combination to be your first and second down bell cow.
And I'd be curious, though, to see and to hear your opinion. Antonio Gibson, unless I'm confused, wasn't a full-time running back in college. He kind of they split him out wide. He's been
a receiver.
So, I mean, maybe a little bit new to the position. Maybe would you consider using him more in the slot as a traditional receiver? I think we might see a little bit of that. Speaking of a division rival, I think you probably will see a little bit of that with Tony Pollard, also a Memphis running back for the Dallas Cowboys. I think teams are going to try to find ways to use – I don't think that Antonio Gibson is a bad player. I think that he's had a bad stretch. But if the goal is to get Robinson on the field, would you consider putting a guy like Gibson in the slot and trying to use him other ways?
I don't know. Like he lost some weight this year, but he put on too much weight with the transition to running back, and he has not once really, except other than on Thanksgiving his rookie year and on a screen pass versus Buffalo, he's never played to his 4.3 speed because he put on like 20 pounds to play running back after we drafted him. So I don't know if I would full-time put him in the slot, but I think we're going to see the best Antonio Gibson because he doesn't have to take the workload of a number one running back. He could be the spell running back that comes in, takes shotgun handoffs, screen passes, and gets him out in space and returns kicks sometimes. Like, he can be fresh, always fresh, without having to get beat up too much. I think it's a perfect situation for him. Backed by committee type situation. Robinson, Gibson, McKissick. We have three more than capable running backs to go with three very capable wide receivers in Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and Jahan Dotson. Logan Thomas just came off the pup. I'm confident that the offense is going to be the leader of this team, and we're going to talk about our defense, which concerns me in just a second. What is your record prediction for the Baltimore Ravens for the 2022 season, and how far do you think this team can go?
Okay, I think a lot of it is going to depend on health of guys. Obviously, last season we were about as injury bitten as a team could get. I think getting some of these important pieces back is going to play a large part. Hopefully we'll get back Gus Edwards at some point. J.K. Dobbins should be back at the beginning of the season. Marcus Peters is back. We're waiting on the health of a guy like Ronnie Stanley, who I think will make a huge difference if he's healthy and can play. Obviously, he's our franchise left tackle. Tyus Bowser, our best pass rusher last season. Mm-hmm. He's hurt. Don't know if he's going to come back week 2, week 3, week 4. A lot of pieces there. However, Ravens opened the season with, in my opinion, on an easier side in the first 3 games. They play the Jets. No discussion needed there. They play the Dolphins, who I think this will be a very telling of how Tua develops. They have 2 very speedy wide receivers. They have 2 very good wide receivers.
Demons.
Jalen Waddle had the most receptions by a rookie wide receiver ever. And then you have a guy like Tyreek Hill, doesn't need an introduction. Cheetah's a great player. And it's going to be, the task is going to be, let's see how the Ravens now vaunted secondary, assuming clean bill of health. How does Marlon Humphrey do? How does Marcus Peters do? How do Kyle Williams and Marcus Williams and Chuck Clark, how do they all handle the speed of the Miami Dolphins wide receivers? I think we could start. We play the Patriots in week 3. You never know with a Belichick team. I think starting 3-0 will be really important because we run into the meat of the schedule after that. For me, my prediction for the Ravens is 12-5. I don't know how the Browns are going to be, and that for me is a big wild card. I also don't know how the Steelers are going to be. I think the Steelers are a really well-coached team. If you ask me, I think Tomlin is one of the best coaches in the NFL.
Hell yeah. He doesn't have a losing season on his record.
But I don't know. Can even with all their offensive talent, is Mitch Trubisky going to be the guy that I feel really
Hell no. Pickett's going to get him up out of here sooner than later.
And Pickett's a rookie, and rookie quarterbacks traditionally have a really tough time playing against the Ravens. The Ravens are going to dial up exotic blitzes, even though Wink is gone. Mike McDonald's going to have them prepared, and all of a sudden Kenny Pickett with his tiny hands is going to be playing up against Odafe Owe coming off the edge at 4.5, 4.4 speed, Justin Houston on the other side, Travis Jones, Campbell in the middle, and then a ton of talented secondary members there. So for me, 12-5, 11-6, coming off all the injuries feels like a realistic prediction. I think a lot of it, like I said, will have to do with the overall health of the team.
Lamar Jackson returning to MVP form?
For me, yes. I think Lamar will be better this year than he was in his MVP season. That is my bold prediction for Lamar, assuming clean bill of health. I think Hollywood moving on, who has me blocked on Twitter. I think I called him Droptimus Prime once, and that was the end of the Hollywood Brown. Yeah, I think moving on from a guy like Hollywood, who was a producer, I will say, for the Ravens, but also vanished at times, to a guy like Rashad Bateman, who I think is going to be more steady in the offense. Mark Andrews is a top 3 tight end, a healthy run game. Isaiah Likely. I think Duvernay and Prochet are ready to take the next step. in the offense. You have Dobbins coming back. I think the offensive line, even without Stanley, should be better, should be improved. And so if you told me Lamar Jackson was going to throw for 4,000 yards and was going to rush for 1,000 yards, I wouldn't call that crazy, especially in 17 games.
Oh, yeah, man. And like my man Jay said, I got a favorite this one. It must be nice to see 11 wins every year. Jake, I have not watched this team win 11 games in my life. The last time it was done, I was a newborn, and they were 14-2 winning the Super Bowl in the 91-92 season. I don't know what 11 games feels like. Could you imagine being a part of that?
So, I mean, for me, I get it on both sides of the spectrum. You got the Nationals for baseball, and I've been an Orioles fan my entire life. And so I know how it feels to have a team that struggles like that. And look, the Orioles are doing well this season. Maybe it's time for the Commanders to follow suit and do really well this season as well.
Yeah, definitely fuck the Nationals. I don't even know who the Nationals are right now, man. I'm sick, man. We just develop these superstars and just say, leave the nest, go be great somewhere else, man. You're a top player in the league, but we don't want you here in Washington. You won your World Series. Just get the fuck out now. Yeah. And he's gonna win MVPs. He's gonna do great things like Bryce Harper did. But yeah, man. So I would say the division. Your division, how do you think it's going to be slotted? Definitely the Browns in last place, since the Massage Menace is going to miss 11 games, right?
Yeah. For me, it's tough to imagine that the Browns, with 11 games without Watson, given how their roster is currently constructed, succeed at any significant level. And I say that in part with, I think people forgot, even with Watson there, their wide receiver one is Amari Cooper, who had a down season last season and is getting up there. Their wide receiver 2 is Donovan Peoples-Jones. The wide receiver 3, maybe David Bell after the preseason. They don't have OBJ anymore. They don't have Rashard Higgins. They don't have Jarvis Landry. Those guys are gone. And so they're going to rely on their run game, which is a really good run game. Kareem Hunt also might want out. He might not be there the entire season. Nick Chubb is great running back, great offensive line. But is that enough to carry that in what's probably going to be a very tough division? I think you can pencil them in for last. I think the Steelers are a wild card for me. If Pickett comes in and has a Justin Herbert or a Joe Burrow type of season, the Steelers could be really good. They have a terrifying defense. In my opinion, one of the most underrated defensive players in football in Cam Hayward, who I would love to have in purple and black, and Steelers fans will hate me for saying that, but he is a prototypical Raven.
Baller.
They have TJ Watt, who's one of the best pass rushers. They have Minkah Fitzpatrick. They have talent everywhere on that defense. As we said, they got wide receivers galore. They have no issue finding and drafting wide receivers. They even took the wide receiver that led us to drafting Isaiah Likely in the first place. We were going to take Calvin Austin, the short speedster, to effectively replace Hollywood. They took him and we pivoted. But for me, I think the Steelers in third is a realistic prediction. I don't think they're going to be a bad team. They might be an 8-9, 9-8 kind of team. But I have no idea, because at the quarterback position for them, they are the biggest unknown. I don't think that Mason Rudolph or Trubisky can be the guy who leads them to the playoffs, and Pickett is still a rookie.
Are you going to regret y'all not getting George Pickens?
I think that George Pickens is going to be a debate for a really long time.
Hell yeah.
I think that a lot of it will, even if he's a star, I think that it will entirely depend on how Ojabo pans out. If David Ojabo comes back and is the guy that he was at Michigan, which was probably a top 15 pick, probably we would have had to draft him at 14 overall if we wanted him. A guy who racked up double-digit sacks next to Aiden Hutchinson in a defense, by the way, coached by Mike McDonald, our new defensive coordinator. If Ojabo becomes an 8 to 10 sack guy, I think that conversation is moot. I think that the Ravens will be happy, and I think the Steelers will probably be happy with Pickens. If Ojabo has a slow start and is a third down pass specialist and has a couple sacks this year, and Pickens, who would be one of my top 5 picks for offensive rookie of the year, has an awesome season. I mean, I think that there's going to be a lot of debate about that. But I also think people are now ridiculously comparing Pickens to Isaiah Likely. And I'm like, we're talking about 2 entirely different types of players. We're talking about a second-round wide receiver in an offense that's probably going to pass the ball a lot, even though they do have a great running back in Najee Harris, versus a fourth-round tight end who's tight end 2 in an offense with already an all-pro tight end.
Facts.
So it'll be interesting there.
Pickens, man, I'm telling you, I think a lot of NFL teams were just afraid because he's a fucking goon. He is a goon. I know you saw his posture watching himself get drafted on draft night. He had the fucking Pooh Shiesty ski mask on, just laid back. He looked like a skit out of like Martin or some shit. It looked crazy, but he's such a goon. He blocks dudes from hell. He wants to fight, but his footwork, his hands, his route running, he's such a complete ass receiver that a lot of teams are going to regret passing up on such a dog, man.
It makes you wonder if he had more of an opportunity, health permitting, season permitting, to produce at Georgia. Like, where would he have gone in this draft? Because he has this, you're right, he has the size, he has the hands, he's an explosive wide receiver. People thought he might sneak into the first round to a receiver needy team like the Chiefs after they traded Tyreek Hill. Could a guy like that turn out to be a star? Yeah, and I think given the opportunity at Georgia, which amazingly has, for next year's class, probably 3 draftable tight ends. Their tight ends are going to be explosive next year. If he had been a true wide receiver 1, health permitting, what would his numbers look like for a national championship winning Georgia team? I'll be curious to see how he pans out. I never actively root against other players' success. I will say, I know some fans are like, nah, like, I want my team to win. I don't want them to succeed against me necessarily. But like, I'm not going to root, as a Ravens, I'm not going to root for George Pickens' downfall. So I think the comparisons and the Ravens fans being upset, I mean, you draft who you draft, and I am certainly not complaining with how our draft went.
Hell yeah, y'all had a ton of picks. It felt like y'all had 20 draft picks this year. Shout out to everybody in the chat right now. Make sure y'all smash that like button. We got 54 in the chat right now. We're about 270 subscribers away from hitting 5,000 on the channel. Make sure you're subscribed, subbed up, and tell a friend if you're not. We're talking Ravens versus Washington. Does the streak live on this Saturday? Because based on what we've seen so far, we haven't even tried to really win it. Well, we had the first game on lock. Howell led the game-winning drive, and then we decided to pull Matt Corral's head around on a flag and put them in field goal position. Does the streak live on this week?
I mean, I'm going to say yes. I don't want to jinx anything.
I don't care.
And truthfully, at this point, 22 games into the streak, I wouldn't be unhappy if the streak ended, just so that people would stop talking about it. Because I think for me, hearing about the preseason streak heading into the last week right before regular season, like, I want to talk about regular season football already. Like, yeah. I don't care as much about the streak continuing. But I think if Snoop continues, if Huntley continues to play the way that he's been playing, if they give Isaiah Likely significant looks, if Demarcus Robinson, who's already a proven NFL wide receiver, comes in and plays an entire quarter, I think the Ravens will perhaps have more talent at their disposal for the preseason game for week 3. But I mean, it's anyone's guess. In the preseason, I genuinely think anything can happen.
Oh yeah. How you doing, Natalie? But yeah, man, like, it'll tell us. I don't take too much from fake ass exhibition game, but it will say a lot, because Ron did say, he said today in his presser, our starters will get very limited, but they will definitely see some playing time on Saturday. So I'm guessing we're going to get 2 possessions out of Wentz and company. We should see a fucking half from the defense, because I don't know what the hell is going on, but Jack Del Rio hasn't figured this shit out here. 3 years and all these first-round picks and development and all these guys we have out there. Yeah, we're going to be without Chase Young for 4 to 6 weeks, but I don't understand the concept. I'm watching a guy who historically has been a really good to great defensive coordinator. This guy has our cornerbacks lined up 9 yards off the ball every play. Like there's a still that looks photoshopped from last week's game. It is 3rd and 3. We're playing against Patrick Mahomes. The corners are 8 yards back. It's like you might as well just say, "Here, Patrick, take the first down," because we're afraid you're going to go
like Madden on rookie mode.
Hell yeah, and then it really does. It like on trainer mode, it's like we're afraid you're going to beat us over the top, so you can have the first down. Like we refuse to get off the field on 3rd down. Like I don't even understand it. Based on all that you know of Jack Del Rio, he's probably on a hot seat here. Like, what do you think could be the issue?
I mean, you mentioned the Chase Young injury. You mentioned potential issues in the secondary. For me, I think the defense is going to ride on the interior pressure from guys that are there. I do think that Montez Sweat is going to have that full-time monster breakout that I think people have been predicting or talking about.
Please.
I think that there is a chance that Montez Sweat this year has like a 14-sack season, and people realize like how much of a threat he is at pass rusher. I think, and I've always thought that he's a very good player. For me, it's always interesting. How are your middle linebackers going to be? Who's going to be the guys? Who are the guys who are calling out plays? Like, is it going to be Davis? Is it going to be Cam Curl in the secondary? Like, who are going to be the people who step up and be like, nah, we're going to make this our defense and we're going to figure out a way to be dominant as we can be.
For starters, someone in the cornerback room needs to say, I'm the number one corner on this team and be it, because between Fuller, St. Juice, and William Jackson III, I mean, you could kind of just throw them in a pot and just pick one at random. Like this guy's, I'd say St. Juice has the most upside of the three, but shit, I wish it was William Jackson because we're paying him $14 million a year to be more than a normal cornerback. But at the same time, devil's advocate, we paid a guy who was a top man cover corner to play in soft-ass zone defenses every week. It doesn't make sense. Jack Del Rio needs to put down his phone and get off MAGA Twitter and put his time into the fucking playbook because his seat is on fire this year. We fired Sam Mills 2 weeks ago, so it's clear that people are being held accountable this year. The defense, I need to see Montez put it together like you said, because a lot of people here think that Montez is just as, if not more talented than Chase Young. And I went to 7 practices this year. Montez Sweat cannot be blocked in practice because it's a controlled setting. He knows the plays, and he's too damn athletic for Charles Leno and Cosme and company to actually get their hands on him when they can't go 100%. He's absolutely dominant. But when we get to games, he doesn't have great bend off the edge. He gets 2 quarterbacks. He never hits home. He never finishes the quarterback. Like, it's very sad that, like, our 5th edge rusher on the roster has the best bend on the team. Shaka Toney out of Penn State. I wish he could just spend every day with Chase Young and Montez Sweat showing them how to bend the edge, because they have all the physical tools that he doesn't have, but he can bend the edge like the best of the best. And I need to see Chase and Montez finally live up to what we thought they would be.
Yep. And to your point about Shaka Toney, imagine he and Owe were on the same Penn State team. Imagine those guys flying off the edge.
Oh, my God. Ridiculous.
2 absolute athletic specimens coming off the edge.
Hell yeah, man. But how do you think the NFC East is going to play out?
So I think that there's a lot of question marks. I think that the Giants, I'm probably going to pencil in as the worst team.
That's a fact.
I think I was going to do that even before Kayvon Thibodeau's injury. But for me, I think, first of all, that, and this could be a controversial opinion, I think Tyrod Taylor should be starting for the Giants. I think that he is a better – I think that this is not a Tyler Huntley, Lamar, or a Heineke, Carson Wentz situation. I think that Tyrod Taylor is a better quarterback than Daniel Jones. I think he won't turn the ball over. He won't fumble. I think he offers more, if not just as much, on the ground. I think that he's more, I think probably more of a game manager type of player, but I think that he's going to net them more wins. If he's the starting quarterback for an entire season, no idea how they look. Daniel Jones in for the entire season, pencil them in last for me. I think the next three between you, the Eagles, and the Cowboys for me are a toss-up, really. There's so many question marks I have about certain teams. How is Carson Wentz going to be? How is Chase Young going to be when he's back? How's your secondary going to be? For the Cowboys, too, I mean, CeeDee Lamb is there, but Michael Gallup's coming off a major knee injury. Amari Cooper is gone. Zeke isn't as good as he has been in years past. And for all the hype that Trevon Diggs gets, I don't think that he's a number one corner. I don't think he's that good.
He's not.
He has all the interceptions. I think Cowboys fans are going to be up in arms the way they always are, talking about Super Bowls. But I don't think he's that. I think he gave up 1,000 yards.
Like 1,100 yards he gave up a full ass Pro Bowl year of a receiver in coverage last year.
Yeah. So for me, I don't know if he can be that guy. Obviously, I think Micah Parsons is that dude for their defense. I think he is very good. But I don't know how the Cowboys are going to perform minus all the receiving weapons. I think Dalton Schultz is a good tight end. I think he's going to be a more focal part of their offense now. But with teams now able to really zero in on CeeDee Lamb as their clear number one wide receiver target, and you don't have a guy like Amari Cooper and Gallup's coming off the injury, no idea how they're going to look. For the Eagles, it's going to depend for me in large part on how does A.J. Brown adjust to playing with Jalen Hurts. If A.J. Brown is the guy that he was in Tennessee there, and all of a sudden you have A.J. Brown on one side and you have Devonta Smith on the other, those are two really good, very different wide receivers on their team. They have running backs galore. No idea if anyone's going to actually seize the role or if it's going to be, like we discussed, a running back by committee for them. And then for their defense, I will say defense could be terrifying. You're talking about Fletcher Cox and Jordan Davis on the interior.
He's an animal.
A terrifying proposition if you're an interior offensive lineman. But they also snuck around. They got Nakobe Dean, who was arguably the captain of Georgia's defense last year. They somehow got that guy in the third round. For me, just as big of a steal in the third as a guy like Travis Jones. Their defense could be sneaky good. Darius Slay is still obviously a really good cornerback there. If I had to go absolute ballpark, I would say all of the three teams are all going to be 9-8 and better. It's just going to matter who's that team that goes maybe 10-7 or 11-6 and pushes to the top of the division. But who won the division last year?
The Cowboys, and no one has repeated in the NFC East since Donovan McNabb and the 2004 Eagles. So the trend says it'll be us or the Eagles winning the division this year.
You or the Eagles. So let's say the Cowboys are in third. Let's say the Cowboys disappoint because they're the Cowboys. Cowboys finish 9-8. It's you guys with the Eagles. I would say in a vacuum, I'd probably choose the Eagles. I'm going to get roasted in the chat for this.
It's all good, bro. It's all good, bro.
But a lot of that has to do with the fact that I think that they have more proven playmakers at this point. I think that A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are a fearsome combination. I also think that this is a really important year for Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts has to either put it all together or they're going to go look and try to find themselves a quarterback.
Absolutely, because next year is on paper, in quotes, the year of the quarterback coming out. So you take their receiving core over our receiving core?
I think as a top two, yes. As a full receiving core, probably not. Because I think for you guys, is it fair to say that it's McLaurin and Dotson are your top two wide receivers?
Yes, and Curtis Samuel is going to be the Swiss Army knife. They're always like Curtis Samuel's like always on the field though, so you might as well just put them together as a trio.
Yeah. So for me, if Curtis Samuel comes back fully healthy, then I think it becomes more of an interesting debate because Jalen Reagor is not that guy. I think for the Eagles wide receivers, if you look at just their top two guys, Devonta Smith had an excellent rookie season last year, and A.J. Brown is a very, very good wide receiver, and now they're paying him as such. And he doesn't have a guy who's going to ruin his playoff game like Ryan Tannehill did last year.
Speaking of Ryan Tannehill, man, I hate QB wins when it comes to people talking about them like they're pitchers, but Ryan Tannehill 100% lost that fucking playoff game to the Bengals last year. We were talking about that off camera. Literally, he plays a half-ass decent game, and the Bengals never have this swan song Cinderella season they had last year, and the Chiefs end up back in the Super Bowl.
Yep, pretty much. Because, I mean, if you think about it, Joe Burrow got sacked 9 times through, a couple interceptions. I mean, the Titans defense harassed them. Like, they painted a picture for this is how you play Joe Burrow. and Ryan Tannehill was just god awful. I mean, like as bad as you can imagine. Like you would have rather had if they had Taylor Heineke in that game, they move on.
Oh, facts, big fact, and that's why they drafted a quarterback in this year's draft that'll eventually unseat Ryan Tannehill. Let's talk about the quarterback class of this year. Is it possible that we get a couple guys that actually turn out to be something because of how bad they were slept on and disrespected, or were they fairly assessed and the league finally sat on their hands and said, you know what, fuck it, we'll wait till next year?
I think a little bit of both. I think that Malik Willis could put it all together. I mean, he's kind of like what Jordan Love was coming out a little bit, like a guy with a cannon arm, doesn't really know competition wise how he matched up. Obviously, he could be an elite runner at the next level. He could throw the deep ball well. I'm happy that he gets a year to develop. I don't think he's going to play this year. I'll be curious to evaluate him next year. I think Kenny Pickett's probably going to be a pretty good quarterback. I think he's better than any quarterback Pittsburgh currently has on the roster. But is he a true game changer at the position? I'll need a full year to see. And I think that Sam Howell can be very good. I think Matt Corral is probably in the worst possible situation
it's terrible.
For a rookie quarterback, because you know that you're not playing over Baker, who they just traded for.
And now he's out for the season, too.
He's out for the season. Is he better than Darnold? We don't know. And truthfully, if Baker and Darnold don't get it done and they're not good, they're drafting
another guy.
They're going to draft a first-round quarterback next year. They cannot afford how their current roster is constructed to not get a guy to be the guy. And next year, I mean, you have C.J. Stroud, you have Bryce Young, you have, I think, Tyler Van Dyke out of Miami is going to be draft eligible. You have Will Levis, you have Anthony Richardson, you have tons of oozing quarterback draft talent. I mean, Spencer Rattler could put it all together again in South Carolina.
Yo, people hate Spencer Rattler. People want no part. I think part of it is because he's ugly and he's douchey, and they remember him on that QB1 shit. Absolute tool on that show.
Yep, but I mean, Rattler could put it all together, and all of a sudden you're talking about, 6 potential first-round quarterbacks in next year's class? Like, it is a loaded class of quarterbacks. So yeah, I think that for a guy like Matt Corral, that's just it's a tough situation to get drafted in. You got hurt, you're not going to play, and if your team's great with Baker, they're going to roll with Baker, and if they're not great with Baker, they're going to find somebody else. So it's a tough situation all in all. But to the point, I think why quarterbacks may have been undervalued, I think teams might have been looking to next year. I would if you are actually a great example. If you're the Atlanta Falcons, you take Desmond Ridder, not in the first round. Could he turn into the guy for you?
Possibly.
Absolutely. Does that, if you are not good this year between him and Mariota, and you have another top 10 pick next year, do you take a quarterback? 100%. You'd rather draft a quarterback like a Stroud, like a Bryce Young, like a Will Levis, and roll with a guy like that, I think, probably than Desmond Ridder if your team's not good this year.
Hell yeah, man. But who do you think, like my top 3 MVP candidates for this year? I'm going Josh Allen, Mahomes, Justin Herbert. Is that your 3, or would you mix it up, or would you add another name?
I'm going to mix it up. I'm obviously going to be a homer here. I think Josh Allen for sure is going to be my top guy. I think he's the betting favorite right now. He would be my first choice. For me, Lamar Jackson was in the MVP conversation last year. They were 8-3. He was on pace for 4,000 plus passing yards and 1,000 plus rushing yards. If the Ravens are a 12-5 team, I want to address that comment that just popped up in a second after, actually. If the Ravens are a 12-5 team and Lamar has stats like that, he's in the conversation. Joe Burrow has to be in the conversation for me.
Yep.
Joe Burrow could very conceivably throw for 5,000 yards this season with the Bengals. He probably has the best wide receiver trio. I know that's
in the league.
Bucs fans who say that they have Evans, Godwin, and Julio.
Nah, it's the Bengals. It's the Bengals.
I think that the Bengals have the Bengals could have 3 1,000-yard wide receivers, which I think will be the first time that we saw that since I think maybe Peyton Manning's first season in Denver. They might have had 3 1,000-yard guys with Demaryius, Wes Welker, and Eric Decker. I know that he had it when he had Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, and Brandon Stokely in Indy. So yeah, I think that Joe Burrow for me would be my second or third guy, depending on.
That's a great guy that I was not thinking about. That Higgins, Chase, and Boyd trio is insane.
to address the comment from Michael Starkey, why is everyone sleeping on Brendan Armstrong? It's actually Brendan Armstrong out of UVA. He's an excellent quarterback. I think he had the third most passing yards in NCAA last year, despite missing 2 games. UVA's offense should be absolutely explosive this year. My younger brother went to UVA, played a sport there. I'm really well-versed in UVA athletics at this point. UVA has a wide receiver who, for me, should garner at the absolute worst day 2 consideration. His name's Dontavion Wicks. He had 1,000 receiving yards last year on 20-plus yards per catch. He's explosive. They have another wide receiver who was injured, should be coming back. His name's Lavelle Davis. He's 6'7", a 6'7" wide receiver who is a good wide receiver. That offense should be with Elliott at the helm, should be explosive. Brendan Armstrong should garner at worst some downvote Heisman consideration there.
Who's his pro comp?
Who's his pro? I think it's tough. He plays for UVA, and UVA is not great in a lot of games. He's not a big. I think he's 6'1", 6'2", 205, 210. I think it's tough for me to generate like a true pro comp for him. I haven't watched as much pure on him film as I would like to. I think I'll get to it this year now that he's draft eligible.
I'm gonna check him out as well.
And UVA should be more explosive. I mean, Howell's not actually a bad comparison. When UVA and UNC played last year, it was one of the highest scoring games. I think
that shit was like great.
62-45, I think was the final score.
Yeah, it was wild.
I mean, Downs, I think, had 200 yards the year before when they played. I think De'Ami Brown lit UVA up for like 8 catches, 240 yards, and 4 touchdowns or something insane like that. But Brendan Armstrong could be, if he has another excellent season and he plays with a coach like Elliott, who maybe develops him a little bit more, is it not crazy to pro comp Baker Mayfield? I don't think he's going to go in the first round, obviously, but it's not a bad pro comp for him. He's got an absolute howitzer of an arm. He's going to throw the ball deep. He's going to be good. The key for him, especially for Heisman consideration, is can a team like UVA be a 9-3 team? If they're a 7-6 team, he's not gonna get the attention that he deserves or that he has earned. If they're a 9-3 team and they beat some other teams in the ACC who maybe teams people weren't expecting to, he's going to get more attention because he's almost assuredly going to be among the nation's top 5 passing yard leaders.
Oh yeah, man! I'm excited to actually watch some UVA football. I watch a lot of Virginia Tech. I enjoy college football season because I have no dog in the fight. I'm not a fan of a specific school. I watch players and prospects. So I enjoy my Saturdays. It's very chill. Shout out to Cooley, my guy. He said respect Lamar. Then he said the Rams, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holton, the other guy. Yeah, man, those are some good wide receiver trios. But speaking of Mahomes and company, I don't think they're going to fall off as hard as people think without Tyreek Hill and Tyrann Mathieu. How do you see the division of death playing out? Devontae Adams is in Vegas. Justin Herbert got Khalil Mack to go with Bosa, and this dude's coming off of 10,000 yards and 70 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons. Russell Wilson is in the fold in Denver. That is the division of death. You guys are in the conference of death. Starting with that division, how do you see that one sliding out?
First of all, have to say it, obligatory Broncos country. Let's ride. Gotta say it.
Let's ride.
It's been everywhere. I mean, that division is nuts. That division is just the textbook example of guys just loading up on each team over and over. Oh, you got Devontae? Oh, we're going to go out and we're going to get Khalil Mack for our team. Oh, well, we're going to go get Russell Wilson. And I will say, for a team like Kansas City that people think is going to fall off, they still have Travis Kelce, who's at absolute worst a top 3 tight end in football, has had 1,000 yards every season where he's been fully healthy, and Mahomes has been there. I mean, that team was a 10-6 team with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and nobody at wide receiver, and Alex Smith was the quarterback in 2020. So, like, they're going to be good. They're a well-coached team. Yeneme's a good offensive coordinator. Andy Reid's an excellent coach. And if he's actually healthy again, do not be surprised if Juju Smith turns in an insane season for them. That's an underrated pickup. If Juju if he's back to being fully healthy, that's a guy who could very easily have 100 catches and 1,300 yards in that offense because they're going to throw to him a lot. He's the best wide receiver they have on that roster. And I mean, the last time we saw him really fully healthy, no issues, anything was, I mean, he played alongside Antonio Brown and he had 1,400 yards for the Steelers. Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback now than Ben Roethlisberger was then. And Antonio Brown is obviously an elite wide receiver and was an elite wide receiver then, but Travis Kelce's no one's going to not blanket Kelce as well. Kelce's going to draw attention. So Juju should have lots of looks for that team at the wide receiver position.
Oh, yeah. And I think the thing is, people view Mahomes emotionally. It isn't the loss of Hill and Matthew. They're just annoyed by his dumbass brother and his loud-ass wife. Like, that's what it is. People don't want to see Pat succeed. Like, first of all, that's that man's wife. Say what you want about that's his spouse at the end of the day. His brother can eat a dick, though. Like, his brother is disrespectful. Like, this man stepped over Sean Taylor's 21 memorial at the stadium last year. I swear, like, if I ever met him, we would have words. But people want to see Mahomes fail because they hate his family, but they don't realize dude is like God's gift to quarterbacking. That is not just going to significantly regress. If 38 touchdowns is your down year, he's coming back for like 44 touchdowns this year because that's what Mahomes does, man.
It's tough to not like Mahomes. I mean, he seems like he's just a good guy.
Yeah.
A little weird that he puts ketchup on steak, maybe, but like besides that, I mean, he's an excellent quarterback. As you said, he's probably going to be regarded when it's all said and done as the guy from our generation. Obviously, Burrow and Herbert are excellent. Lamar is great. Josh Allen's great. But in terms of who's a guy who is a pure elite, who's going to be the guy, I right now you have to say it's going to be Mahomes. He's got everything you'd want. I love Lamar Jackson. Love him. And if they were like, would you rather have 10 years of Lamar or 10 years of Mahomes?
No, I got it.
10 years of Mahomes every single day.
I'm taking 10 years of Mahomes over anybody, bro. Like, that's the most talented, ridiculous quarterback I've ever seen in my fucking life. Like my guy said, he's the Steph Curry, and if we've never seen anything like it, bro. Yes. He does what he wants to. He was in a playoff game looking like he was in a preseason game last week against us. Yeah. And he exerted no effort. He didn't look like he broke a sweat. Nope. It had a little slight 160 and 2 tutties in one quarter of play. Like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes, the attention that he demands, the way he makes things look so effortless when he plays the game. I think he does sound like Kermit the Frog.
His voice is terrible.
That is an accurate.
That's what keeps him human.
When I first heard him do an interview, I think I was like, wait a minute. I need to rewind. Let's play that back. He's an underrated runner. He's just as good. He is better on the ground than people will give him credit for.
He's mobile as shit.
The most indicative moment was overtime game, what they played the Bills. Mm-hmm. The second that he had the ball back, you knew, everybody in the NFL, the Bills knew it, the Chiefs knew it, we knew it, that the Chiefs were winning that game. When you give Mahomes the ball first in overtime, they are winning that football game. There's nothing more to it.
I do kind of hate all the bitching about the playoff and the overtime rule. Like, play fucking defense. Like, oh my God, they never got a chance. They did have a chance. They didn't stop the Chiefs. Mahomes got the ball, and you already knew what was going to happen when Mahomes got the ball. If anyone in the division unseats them and wins it this year, who is it going to be, though?
For me, I think I'd have to say the Chargers. I think that Herbert is the quarterback who is most likely to elevate and be the guy, and I think that they have underrated weapons on their team. I think the most underrated wide receiver in all of football is Keenan Allen. For me, he's a top 5-6 guy, and no one ever ranks him there. I mean,
top 2 route runner, easily.
He is an elite route runner. He's got great hands. He's a big guy. You pair him with a guy like Mike Williams. They have an excellent pass-catching overall running back in Austin Eckler. And all of a sudden, you're telling me that they have a defense now that features Bosa on one side and Khalil Mack on the other with Owen James in the secondary locked up now? I mean, disgusting. By the way, didn't they also add J.C. Jackson?
Yes, they did add J.C. Jackson.
That team, if everything comes together, could be absolutely terrifying. They have everything. So, for me, the Broncos, are they not going to be a lot better by adding Russell Wilson? Absolutely. Am I still 100% not completely sold on their wide receivers? I mean, Judy and Sutton are great, but they're not Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. They're not Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller. And I mean, they're better than what the Chiefs have in a vacuum, but like, is Sutton and Judy better than Juju and Travis Kelce? Probably not. And Mahomes is better than Russell Wilson is. So I think that there's a really good chance that, as crazy as it sounds, that like that team might not have a losing record team. Like, I think that there's a chance that the worst team could be 8-8, because when you think about it, there has to be a worse team. But
8-9 is 17 now.
It could be 8-9 now. You're right, yeah. But like, who's going to be the worst team in among all of those guys? Like, there's so much talent. They don't have a bad quarterback. Derek Carr, I guess, is the worst quarterback in the division.
And he's really good.
Got Devontae Adams and Darren Waller, and he's got Renfrow there. I think Zamir Cook, who I believe they took, should take over the running back position from Josh Jacobs at some point. I mean, they're good teams. So I'll be really curious to see how that division plays out. Those will be some of those games that, even as a non-fan, I will tune into just to see and check in how those teams progress over the course of the season.
Definitely agree about the Chargers. That's why I have Justin Herbert in my top 3 MVP guys to watch and to close out the stream. You know, we don't want to go too long. You know, it's just preseason week, but once we get to the regular season, we can go however long needs to go. What is your Super Bowl prediction this year? Give me both teams and give me who wins it all this year.
Okay, wow. I mean, look, as a Ravens homer, I would love to pick Baltimore. I don't think that's going to happen. God, who am I going to pick this year? I think the division of death is going to produce – can we do that? I think the division of death is going to produce the AFC contender. I think the Bills are going to be really good for the
Me
record.
too.
I think Josh Allen is the MVP favorite. I think that they're also deceptively loaded at wide receiver with Gabe Davis and McKenzie backing up Stephon Diggs.
Mm-hmm.
I think the run game is going to be improved. I think James Cook can be that guy. Dawson Knox is a great tight end. Their defense just added Von Miller for people who don't remember. The Bills could be good. I don't know. For me, I think the division of death will battle test those teams. And so whoever comes out of that team is going to be ready for playoff time. I think they're going to be roaring. So whether it's the Chiefs, I think it's probably between the Chiefs and the Chargers. One of those teams I think is going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. On the NFC side, I think previously I might have said a team like the Bucs, but that Chiefs versus Rams.
That's my pick. That's my pick right there.
I'll be curious though with the Rams. I think we've seen how tough it is to repeat, to go back unless your name's Tom Brady. I think OBJ was a big part. I think Robert Woods, even though he didn't play a part in the latter half of the season, was a big part of their offense. I mean, you're going from Rob Woods and OBJ. If Allen Robinson comes out and is that guy again that we saw, the 1,400-yard receiver in Jacksonville, the guy who could produce in Chicago with you or me at quarterback, I think that they can be that team. They don't have a ton of depth. This is a team coming off. Maybe there's a Super Bowl hangover. Von Miller's no longer there. Aaron Donald is obviously the best defensive player in football.
They got Bobby Wagner. I mean, he's not the same Bobby Wagner.
Wagner is great. I mean, yes, so they still have pieces. I think it'll come down to maybe, again, could it be Bucs versus Rams to see who goes there? I don't know if there's another team in the NFC that, like, I genuinely believe can to be a threat to those two teams. The Packers obviously have Aaron Rodgers. He is throwing to you and me at wide receiver.
Yep.
I don't know if they're going to be that team. We haven't even seen their second-round draft. We haven't seen Christian Watson yet. Romeo Dubs is going to be the preseason Jerry Rice. I don't know if he's going to be anything when it comes time. Sneaky team to watch out for, San Francisco. If Trey Lance puts it all together and both healthy and Kinlaw's healthy, that team could provide some fireworks. Elijah Mitchell, running back committee there, is really good. They locked up their guy, their wide receiver. They have George Kittle. I mean, they've got talent oozing.
He has everything he needs for a young quarterback,
Yep.
and I think he is going to hit. I don't think Kyle Shanahan's going to get every bit out of that talent he has,
Yep.
and everyone who thinks Trey Lance is going to suck, y'all going to see. The thing is going to keep rolling in San Francisco, just like it was when porn star Jimmy was running the show over there.
Yep.
But as far as the AFC is concerned, I think the AFC Championship, I'll put it in ink right now, the Chiefs versus the Bills.
Yep.
That's going to be the AFC Championship. Mahomes ain't losing the AFC Championship 2 years in a row. They're going back. First of all, the Chiefs are winning the Super Bowl this year. And people are probably, oh, my God, you're going to predict them after Hill and them? Yes, because they have freaking Michael Jordan playing quarterback, the young Michael Jordan. You know, I know Brady's still playing in the NFC, but I'm going to write Mahomes into the Super Bowl almost every year, and I think the Bills are going to have a crazy season, like 14-3 in the regular season, and the Chiefs are probably going to go 12-5, 13-4. But when they meet in the playoffs in the AFC Championship, Mahomes is going to win because he's going to be the last one with the ball, and I'm taking Mahomes over anybody, and I'm taking him in the Super Bowl. The NFC is just a mosh posh of I don't know because Rodgers, like you said, he's throwing to newborn receivers, but he's still going to be an MVP candidate because he's God's gift to quarterbacking as well as Mahomes was. He was there first. But the Bucks, freaking Brady, you know what I'm saying? He's checking out when he wants to. Are they going to be as good as they were these last couple years?
Not with that offensive line right now.
Hell no. Brady is not trying to play behind that offensive. He's thinking about going to Fox and getting back in the studio and getting to that contract he got. Yep. But the Rams are really all I can think of in the NFC unless someone crazy jumps into the picture. Dare I say someone from the NFC East? Dare I say a team from the NFC, like a team like the Saints or something?
Imagine the Saints. If Jameis Winston takes the Saints to the freaking Super Bowl, we have to be on this pod a week before the Super Bowl being like, how did this happen? Like, what has unfolded that has led Jameis Winston to do this?
I would love it, man. I want to see Jameis. He was playing pretty decent until he got hurt last year, man. I would love to see us and he said Commanders versus Carson with Carson being the MVP. First of all, if they ever made the Super Bowl, I'm going to come on the stream and just cry. I'm buying every single bit of merch possible that has Washington and the Super Bowl logo on it. It would make my absolute day. Shout out to the 199 Super. So what the Ravens doing after we win 58-0 on preseason? They're going to carry on with their lives.
It's preseason. Probably go Jimmy's Seafood and have a nice time. I mean,
yo, they're the worst Twitter page ever, by the way. They're
so funny. And I like it. Also, they're huge UNC homers, which makes no sense.
I don't understand their
logic. I will say this. If the Commanders make the Super Bowl, you will still have a portion of your fan base saying that Heineke's a better quarterback than Carson Wentz.
Yep, and then you will have another portion of the fan base still bitching and moaning that the name isn't Redskin. This is my team. This ain't the Redskins, so I don't care if Snyder wins it. Man, shut the fuck up and watch the team that's currently on the field.
If you have an issue with your team in the Super Bowl because the name is something different, you need to reevaluate your values on fandom.
Hey. If you were part of what Washington Twitter looks like here since this name change, some of the most trivial shit become everyday fucking conversation. But could you imagine me and you having this live stream for Ravens Commanders Super Bowl?
We should make a deal right now. If that ever happens, we're having this stream.
We're having like a fucking 6-hour stream.
We're bringing some former players on. We're getting some guys. We'll talk about it live with them.
That would be crazy. The DMV would spontaneously combust, but I appreciate you coming on with me. As always, whenever I need anybody to come talk Ravens or ball period, as you can see, my guy is savvy with it. Let people know where they can find you on social media before we get out of here.
Yeah, so you can find me. It's @_ Jake Gray, GREY _ on Instagram. It's @TheRealJakeGray on Twitter. You can usually find me talking about sports or sports betting. I work for a company called Simplebet. If you're interested in sports betting, we offer something via DraftKings and via Intralot in the DC area with Gambit that no other company can offer, which is live in-play sports betting. You can bet on, I think the next play is going to be a rush or a pass. I think it's going to be a first down. I think it's going to be a touchdown, drive result, everything. You can't get it anywhere else but DraftKings and Intralot, really. I would check it out. It's so much fun. We're going to be offering some really fun new markets for NFL this season. That's Simplebet. I would also follow us there. Got some fun polls. I'll make a poll, maybe see what people think about Carson versus Heineke, see what our social following thinks about that.
Oh, God.
But yeah, definitely check us out. Keep an eye on football season. I'm excited, man. I'm excited for the season to begin. I'm done with baseball. Bring back the NFL.
I need the NFL back. 301 is a troll, guys. Do not take what 301 says too seriously. And I'm not even going to give this one much of my time for a response because the sentence is too grammatically incorrect to warrant a response at the moment. But appreciate everybody that pulled up in the chat, everybody that supports the channel. We're on our way to 5,000 subscribers. Until next time, hail to the Washington Commanders. Rio out.
Peace.